All right, what is up, my friends? Welcome to my complete set review for Innistrad Crimson Vow Vampire Weddings. Let's do this. We did white, now we're doing blue. We're doing every card, constructed, limited, every single card, and we're doing all right here, right now, giving out awards. Best in Show, Trap card, and our new award, Sleeper card, too. Of course, anything else to be up on YouTube. Watching on Twitch, make sure you follow. Watching on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And YouTube comments, let me know what your thoughts are. What are your Best in Show? What's your Sleeper card? In the comments, of course, check out my fine sponsors, which are right down here. And let's jump right into blue. Let's jump right into blue here with our very first card, which is Alchemist's Retrieval. 1 blue instant. We have a cleave card here with the brackets. So, return target non-land permanent you control its owner's hands. So, 1 mana to bounce your own thing, 2 mana to bounce anything. And this is just like an interesting take on the usual disperse, boomerang, whatever kind of effect. It's fine. It's okay limited card. It's obviously kind of cool. You can protect your own stuff with it. It's basically kicker. Yeah. Rescue at some upside. It's just an okay limited card. It's an okay limited card. You already have Fading Hope constructed, so never see play constructed. But in limited, it's a reasonable card. Reasonable card. Yeah, everything's kicker, you know? Everything's kicker. Up next is Binding Geist. 3 mana for a 3/1. Whenever it attacks, target your opponent controls gets -2/-0 when the turn. This card's solid. Because it being a 3/1, this can attack into 2/2s, attack into 1/1s, and that's awesome for a 3/1. Super, super cool. Makes blocking hard for your opponent. Then it has Disturb for 2. Comes back as an aura that gives -2/-0. Wouldn't be playable by itself, but as a backside, sort of like a free bonus on your already reasonable card, this is pretty solid. This is a pretty solid common. I'm not going to lie. Both sides are pretty good. Card advantage. We saw this from, as I said about, last in white, Bait Hook Angler. Looks so innocent. Just a 2/1 and a 1/2. But card advantage is great. So super, super high quality blue common here. Likes card a lot. Biolume Egg. 3 mana for an 0/4 defender. Comes into play Scry 2. Sure. Whenever you sacrifice the egg, return to the battlefield, transform it into its owner's control. Beginning of the next end step. Okay, so it comes back as Biolume Serpent, a 4/4, and you can sacrifice 2 islands to make it unblockable end of turn. Great draft card. So obviously blue-black are all about exploiting things, the exploit mechanic to sacrifice for an extra effect. And this is the kind of thing you want to sacrifice because you literally get the card back and it's better than it was beforehand. So sack this thing, get a 4/4. This is a top tier uncommon for limited. Top tier uncommon. Couldn't really ask for more. The front side, honestly, an 0/4 it scries 2 for 3 is already like, okay, could be worse. But then when you flip this thing, it's just insane. So insane limited card. Constructed, probably not. I think Exploit's going to be a pretty good mechanic in blue-black in constructed, but I don't think that paying 3 mana for a 4/4 is really worth it. Scry. A lot of things need to go right here, and the floor is too low for constructed probably, but insane limited card. Cool art too. Like it. Up next, we have Cemetery Illuminator. No awards. Blue 1 Spirit. It's a flying 2/3. So, of course, it's a cycle of mythics. All these cemetery blanks all come into play. Exile a card from a graveyard in some way, and then use that card to notify things. So, 2/3 flyer. Whenever it enters or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. May look at the top card of your library anytime. Once a turn, you may cast a spell from the top of your library if it shares a card type with a card exiled by Cemetery Illuminator. So you can't play lands off this because it is cast a spell. It's important to note. I think this card was very, very close to my trap card in blue. This card looks really good, right? We have a good body. It's a graveyard hate card. You can experimental frenzy cards off the top of your deck. But the reality is, like, similar to the white one, what deck wants this card? Are we playing a control deck? Are we playing a creature deck? If we're playing a creature deck, like, it's exile a creature. Is our blue-white deck even going to kill a creature? Are they going to kill our creatures? Maybe, So, best case scenario with this card is probably that you're playing like a blue-white spirits deck. And opponent kills one of your creatures, and you play this and hit creature on it. And now you have like a Realm Walker with flying, which is like fine, But all in all, I think this is like a lot of text and some decent rate, but just doesn't really have a home, you know. And then I'm not really playing this in like my control deck because like I just don't want a 2/3, you know. Like I just don't really want that. So super cool. It's graveyard hate. It's made that deck up a graveyard hate. I love graveyard trespasser in this format, but I just don't think this card really has a home, despite being quite powerful. Busted limited card, obviously, just totally busted limited card. But in constructed, I just don't really see a home for it. If it finds one, the rate is there, but I just don't really see a home for it. Moving on to Chill of the Grave, the mana for a frosty cantrip. Tap a creature, doesn't untap next turn, draw a card. Playable card by itself, but it only costs 2 if you control a zombie. If you're playing a lot of zombies, this card's freaking awesome. 2 mana for a Frost Breath is insane. Super awesome effect. Great cantrip, and great draft card if you're playing a lot of zombies. Up next is Cobbled Lancer. 1 mana for a 3/3 zombie horse. But as additional cost to cast a spell, exile a creature card from your graveyard. So you gotta be doing some discarding, some graveyard villain, or this card's not really gonna work. You could also pay 4 to exile this from your graveyard and draw a card, which is pretty awesome, honestly. So you can mill this and draw a card later. If it dies, you can draw a card later. The issue with this card, of course, is actually just casting it. And you gotta have at least 1 creature card in your graveyard, which isn't like impossible to do, but there's some self-mill and so on and so forth. So for constructed, probably not. If you're doing things to get cards in your graveyard, you probably want to keep them there because you want the ability to do whatever it is you're doing with the graveyards. You want to exile the cards. And it's not enough payoff as a 3/3 for 1. You can't play on turn 1 for that. So not a constructed card, I don't think, but solid limited card if you have the ability to cast it and then or the ability to self-mill it. And a self-mill deck card seems very solid. Up next is Consuming Tide, blue 2 for a sorcery. Each player chooses non-land permanent they control. Return all non-land permanents not chosen this way to their owner's hands. Then you draw a card for each opponent who has more cards in hand with you. I read this card, I'm not going to lie, and I just completely glossed over it. I was reading, my mind was in space somewhere, and I'm going to try and read it again. All right, I'll try and read it again. Each player chooses a non-land permanent they control. Return all other non-land permanents chosen this way to their owner's hands. Then draw a card for each opponent who has more cards in hand than you. So this is just like it's like a commander card. So each player keeps one thing, and they get to choose it also. So if your opponent is not playing things, you draw a card for each opponent who has more cards in hand than you. I guess like if you're just not playing any permanents and they have like 4 things in play, you just play this, they bounce all 4 things, and you probably draw a card, which is like fine. This is sort of just like a weird blue Wrath. So like constructed wise, like it could see play in that regard, but they also keep their biggest thing, which is not so great. Yeah, it just feels like a sideboard card constructed. And then in limited, it seems probably not good either. Just, I don't know, whatever. This card's just too weird. I'm just getting a headache. Cradle of Safety, 2 mana for an enchantment aura. This is effectively just Starlit Mantle. Aura +1/+1 when it comes into play, it gets hexproof. Cool trick, honestly. The fact that it's a pump spell and a protection spell is really cool. Very solid limited card. Constructed playable under the right circumstances, probably pretty narrow. There aren't really many like enchantment aura things going on. But yeah, fine limited card. We've already seen this card before. It's a card that exists. So fine filler card for limited. Cruel Witness. Blue 2 for a 3/3 flyer at common. Who played limited back in the day? All right, like a million years ago, when like a 2/2 flyer for 4 was like, oh my god, it's an evasive creature. This is insane. Just a common 3/3 flyer for 4, no downside and upside. Whew, boy, kids these days. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, look at the top card of your library. Let me put that card in your graveyard. So just a super rock solid common here. Just a really good flyer. It's not a spirit, but it is just a super solid card. Some graveyard stuff going on too. Just good. And it is some really creepy art. I agree. You kind of look at it, you start looking at it even more. You kind of just get lost. There's freaking eyeballs. There's like some wings and some creepy trees. There's people hanging in the background. What a creepy. I'm gonna go. I'm scared now. Diver Scab, 5 mana for a 3/5. Exploit. When it comes to play against that creature, if you do exploit, whenever you exploit a creature, put a creature on the top or bottom of the owner's library. So, super solid limited card. 3/5 for 5 is reasonable. It's pseudo removal. They can draw the card again, obviously, but still a pretty powerful effect. You're going to want to have it in a deck where you have things to sacrifice, like Biolumeg, but solid limited card. Solid limited card for sure. Destructed, obviously not. Just a solid limited card. Dreadlight Monstrosity. 6 mana for a 5/5. Common. Ward 2. And 5 mana, can't be blocked this turn. Activate only if you own a card in exile. It's a weird line of text. But yeah, this is their typical, like, my draft deck needs a way to win the game kind of card. And if you need a top end card, it seems reasonable. Ward 2 is not amazing on a 6-drop, but there are some expensive removal spells. So just if you have a curve top or a limited, it'll do the thing. Dream Shacklegeist. Blue 1 for a 3/1 flying spirit. Reasonable. Beginning combat, tap a creature or frost a creature. And this is obviously a great limited card. Constructed, it's okay. Some sort of like blue spirit deck, maybe. Very fragile, though. Very, very fragile. Just a great limited card. Probably nothing more than that, honestly. Fear of Death, 2 mana for an enchantment aura. This card's really cool. It's an aura comes into play, you mill 2. And then the creature gets minus X, minus O, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. So at minimum, of course, it is -2, -O, which isn't really good enough for 2 mana. But already going to be cards in your graveyard. This is like -4, -5. It's a very solid defensive card. Also, you get the value of self-mill, too. So this is a really cool card. I like this card a lot. Mostly a niche deck and niche card limited for like your self-mill deck. But cool card. Like it a lot. Cool card. A Geist Light Snare. We have our sleeper card. Our sleeper card of the set. 3 mana for a mana leak. Costs 1 less if you control a spirit. Also costs 1 less if you control an enchantment. This card's good. This card's good. Now, it has to actually have a support to be super good. But not that hard to make this card a mana leak. And then not that hard to make it a 1 mana leak, which is absolutely insane. No restrictions here. Not counter target non-creature spell. Not counter target planeswalker spell. This is just mana leak. As long as you have a spirit or an enchantment in play. And that's freaking awesome. Again, does it actually have to have a home? Yes. Does it have to be enough spirits? Yes. But very, very powerful card. Mana leak's obviously a phenomenally powerful card. And it also functions like Mystical Dispute did if you don't have a spirit in play. So I think this card's got a good chance in Constructed for sure. Also playable in Historic possibly. Maybe Pioneer. Obviously Modern has mana leaks. So I don't really need to play this, but very, very powerful card. Super, super card. And then of course, yeah, Kamigawa will have spirits as well. Changelings, just a super cool card. Just a super cool card. I like this card a lot. In Limited, it's okay. But Constructed, card seems really, really cool. Seems really, really cool. Party decks. Let's try party decks one more time. Garoth, Visionary Stitcher. 3 mana for a 1/4. Zombies have flying. That's terrifying. 1 blue, tap, sacrifice another non-token creature. Make an XX blue zombie, or X to sacrifice creature's toughness. Kind of a weird card, because if you're sacrificing non-token creatures, you're just like making it into a token. So like obviously this works well if you sacrifice a 1/4, you get a 4/4. But most cards in Limited are 2/2s, 3/3s, 3/2s, 2/3s, whatever. Obviously kind of cool because you can use the disturb ability on cards and stuff too. But it's a weird card. Just a weird card. Giving zombies flying is fine. It's not sorcery speed, so you can do it in response to removal and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. There are some high toughness black commons here, so definitely a solid limited card for sure. Definitely a solid limited card. Constructed, probably not, but solid limited card for sure. Give your zombies flying. Fizzle or kill spell or two. It's kind of a weird card, honestly. Kind of a weird card. Gutter Skulker. Ooh. I like that name. Gutter Skulker. Ooh, boy. Gutter Skulker. 4 mana for a 3/3. Can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone. So a very, very powerful limited card right off the bat. Basically a 3/3 unblockable for 4, which is great. And it's Disturb 4, which just gives the ability. Same thing. Can't be blocked once it's attacking alone. Great limited card. Great limited card. Just great way to break through. Reasonably solid body. And also, as I said, it's important to think about these 4-drops. Your evasive 4-drop. What's it do when you play it? There was that white 2/2 flyer for 4 where like the turn you play, it's pretty gross. You just play this 2/2 flyer, it doesn't really do anything. This card, you can play it. You can just trade if you need to. Just trade if you need to, get the aura back later. Great limited card. Phenomenal. Good stuff. Good stuff. Hull Breaker Horror.
It's a trap.
This is like your control deck Mirror Breaker, right? So 7 mana, whatever, huge creature, can't be counter flash. We've seen like a million of these before, all right? The problem with this card is that it doesn't protect itself unless you have mana up for an instant to bounce it. And then even in that case, say I have 8 mana, I cast this, they go to Doomblade it, and in response I play a Consider and bounce it back to my hand. Now I need to play it again, you know? This is not the Mirror Breaker you want it to be. It's just too expensive, doesn't do enough. Counter spells aren't that prevalent in the format. It's just like not really doing enough. Tidespout Tyrant can bounce lands, then can't bounce lands. Returning spells is kind of cool because like in a format like Modern, you can like return their Ugin or whatever, or O-Stone, kind of things like that. But all in all, I'm pretty unimpressed with this card. I think it's a pretty big trap. I'd be very surprised if it see much play at all in any format. I just think the card is pretty overrated. In limited, sure, it's a bomb. It's expensive, but it's a bomb because it's just so freaking huge and flashy. But yeah, also that's also true. Divide by Zero is currently one of the more played cards in blue decks right now. And Divide by Zero, don't care if your spell can't be countered, which is pretty embarrassing on both sides. So not a Mirror Breaker, not a very good card in general. Hullbreaker Horror is our trap card for blue. Inspired Ideas deck. This is a weird one. 3 mana for a sorcery. Draw 3 cards. Your max hand size is reduced by 3 for the rest of the game. That's cumulative. So if I cast the first Inspired Idea, now my hand size is 4. I cast second Inspired Idea, now my hand size is 1. Right? So that's pretty crappy. But it has a cleave ability. So for 5 mana, we just draw 3. We remove the bracket to get rid of that stuff. Really weird card. Really weird card. Because obviously, a 3 mana draw 3 is pretty insane. But you don't want to discard a hand size. 5 mana draw 3 is pretty bad. It's just a weird one. Just a weird one. Obviously, it can help you discard cards, but like there are better ways to draw 3 cards and discard cards literally in this set at the same mana cost. So I think this card is just not super exciting. I think it looks kind of cool, but all in all, it's not very good. It's a scuffed Graven lore. It's very fair. In limited, sure, 5 mana draw 3 is reasonable. But okay as a one of, yeah, I mean like maybe, but the payoff isn't super high. Like the first one is pretty fine. The problem is like if we have 3 cards in our hand and cast this, we're gonna discard a hand size, which sucks. So kind of a cool idea, but it's not super great. Not super great. Jacob, my old band PLMB had a song called "Jacob is a Stupid Name." Anyone who's watching it, Jacob, I'm sorry. We didn't mean it. We didn't mean it. Jacob Inspector, 2 mana for an 0/2. Tap, draw a card. Then exile a card from your hand face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may pay 6 mana if you do transform. So all you can do is look at it. You can't do anything with it. But if you transform into a Hawkins Insight. Legendary enchantment, being for upkeep, exile, top card library face down. Look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from among the cards exiled with this permanent without paying its mana cost. So, not so good in the front side. It's not a looter. It's just literally just like store cards over later. But you can pay 6 mana when you resolve the ability, and you can turn into an Omniscience for 1 spell a turn. That is very powerful, but couldn't imagine a more fragile card than this. And the fact that you need to just like dump cards into this before you can even use it, like you need to basically discard a card. No ups. I'm sorry, you draw a card. Never mind. I'm sorry, you draw a card. But you can't use the graveyard anyway. So you draw a card, get rid of a card, it goes away forever. I guess this is a looter. Looter with no graveyard stuff. Just not super exciting. It's not a looter because like you can't use the graveyard. The graveyard's the most important thing in the set. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of cute. It's probably more of a commander card, not really a constructed card. For limited, this card seems freaking great because you just pay 6 and cast all your spells for free, which is awesome. But constructed wise, it's cute. It's a cool card. Up next is Lantern Bearer. 1 blue for a spirit flying creature. Disturb 3, and the disturb card is +1/+1 and flying. This card's good. I mean, at least we've seen a number of things that care about spirits so far. And a 1/1 flying spirit for 1 is, it's not the worst as far as like synergy goes. And then it has the disturb ability plus almost 1 in flying is also, reasonable. So if you're looking for filler, in your spirits deck, and you could do worse than this. You could do worse than this. And in constructed, this card was fine too, honestly. I mean limited. Plus almost 1 in flying is a nice aura on the backside. So with the mana leak available, with some spirit lords available and stuff like that, Clarion Spirit, this card's fun. This card's fun. Cool art too. Cool art. Lunar Rejection, 2 mana for an instant. Turn target wolf werewolf that's on his hand, draw a card. You can cleave it for 4 to bounce anything. I would say this card is a okay card limited. Obviously, a great sideboard card against green decks and red decks. But honestly, fine otherwise too. 4 mana repulse is not amazing, but it's fine. It's fine and limited. You can work with that. Mirror Hall Mimic. 4 mana for a clone, but it's also a spirit. So clone is obviously okay. And then the backside is Hollowed Footsteps. Beginning of your upkeep, enchant a token that's a copy of enchanted creature, except it's a spirit, it's just other types. So powerful effect, but obviously gets blown out. You can enchant any creature, which is your opponent's stuff also, which is kind of cool. But this card feels a little too casual to me for constructed. Just too reliant on other things to be good. We've seen good clones before constructed. This is not one of them. Great limited card, obviously. Super busted limited card. But constructed, not really. Mischievous Catgeist, 2 mana for a 1/1. Never deals combat damage to a player. Draw a card. Obviously, it's a 1/1 for 2. A little hard to get through. Disturb side is Curiosity, which is reasonable. 3 mana for a Curiosity. Honestly, not a great card. It's just going to be hard to get this thing through. Unless you're playing out of removal spells and stuff. The body's so small. It gets blocked by literally everything. The backside doesn't give you any power toughness bonus. It's a little clunky too. But kind of a cute card, but not really super exciting, honestly. Necro Duality, 4 mana mythic enchantment. Whenever a non-token zombie enters the battlefield under your control, create a copy of that creature. So kind of a cool card. Obviously, the opportunity cost of just casting a 4 mana enchantment is pretty high. But once you have it, it's pretty cool. Is there enough zombie stuff to make this matter constructed? Probably not. You can't really afford to take off an entire turn 4 to cast a card like this. But super cool limited card. Fun casual card too, for sure. Oh boy. Best in show. Talking about zombies. Overcharged Amalgam. This card's something else. Blue 2. 3/3 flying flash. Again, already almost there on rate. Alright. Exploit. Whenever it exploits a creature, counter target spell. Not non-creature spell. Not creature spell. Anything. Or counter activated ability. Or counter triggered ability. And that's really, really good. That's really freaking good. I think there's definitely going to be a blue-black, like Decayed Zombie Token Exploit deck. This card, Grafted Identity, and all the black sacrificey cards. This card is just awesome. And again, this is just a good-sized creature. If your opponent doesn't cast anything, you can just cast this. Untap and start beating down, Really, really good card. The body is super solid. The ability is great. And of course, you can always sacrifice this too. If you're in a pinch and you have to counter an Orange Epiphany or something like that, you can sack the Amalgam as well. So worst case scenario, 4 mana cancel. This is awesome. Love it. Super awesome card. Can't wait to play with this one. And the fact that it's also castable by itself. So for example, Frilled Mystic. I always hated that card because you never wanted to cast it if your opponent didn't do anything because it's so awkward to cast, so it's only a 3/2. This card is just fine. It's a 3/3 flyer. So love this card. Super awesome. My best in show. And cannot wait to cast this card in constructed. Obviously busted and limited because if it didn't have any abilities, it'd still be really good as a flash flyer. Super awesome card. Patchwork Crawler is our next card. 2 mana for a 1/2. Pay 3, exile a creature card from a graveyard, from your graveyard, and put a counter on the crawler. It has the activated abilities of all cards exiled with it. So I'm sure there's like weird combos with this, similar to Necrotic Ooze and whatever. But sure. Scavenging Ooze for your own graveyard, kind of cool. The kind of card where, like, unless some pretty busted combo is found, probably not doing much. Probably not doing much, but it's a cool card. It's a cool card. Good limited card. It just grows just fine. And then constructed, probably not. Probably not. Repository Scab. 4 mana for a 3/3 exploit. Whenever you exploit, return instant source card from your graveyard to your hand. Solid card. Solid card. Body's good enough as it is. Not really, but the body's fine. The body's passable. And then getting back and kill spell. Again, there are no decayed tokens in this set. And it's funny because there's going to be a draft format where you can draft both sets at once, which is kind of cool. Because obviously decayed tokens play really, really well with exploit, but they don't have them in this set. But there's still plenty of fodder to sacrifice. So solid card. Nothing great. Just a fine draft card. Very deck dependent. Scattered Thoughts. 4 mana instant. Look at top 4. 2 in the hand, 2 in the bin. It's funny because, like, this is probably one of the better Glimmer of Genius effects we've seen in a while, honestly. Just better than Glimmer of Genius by a lot. But it's just not better than Memory Deluge. So, not going to see play constructed. In Limited, I would want to have some more flash stuff in my deck before I played a card like this. It's very hard to not affect the board in Limited. So, middling to low middling Limited cards, fine, but I want to be aware of, more kill spells you have, better his card gets, and so on and so forth. Screaming Swarm. 6 mana for a 4/4 flyer. Whenever you attack with one or more creatures, target player mills that many cards. And then 3 mana to put it in your library, second from the top from the graveyard. So it's just like your curve topper for limited. 4/4 flyer for 6 is fine. Mill your opponent out. If they kill it, get it back. You got to end the game somehow, right? You got to end the game somehow. And this will do that. Good limited card. Good limited card. Selhoff Entomber. 2 mana for a 1/3. Discard a creature, draw a card. So it's a looter but can't discard lands. That bar kind of sucks. There are obviously the disturb cards in the set. Discarding those for value, not nearly as good because they're all not creatures. Pretty not high on this card. I think this card's pretty eh. This card's pretty eh. Serpentine Ambush. 2 mana for an instant. Card creature becomes a 5/5 on the turn. It's funny. They always print these cards and they're always bad, but they keep upping the numbers. Usually it's a 4/4. Now it's a 5/5. Probably still not good enough. Kind of cool in white with the plus and counter stuff for training because you get to keep the counters also, but just like super fringe, mopey limited card. Skywarp Scab. 5 mana for a 2/5 flyer.
Oh my god, Becky.
ETB, you may exile 2 creature cards from your graveyard if you do draw a card. That's a solid effect. If this thing draws a card every time, 2/5 flyer for 3 for 5 it draws a card is awesome. Super solid limited card. Obviously good in the self-mill deck. It's a big butt. It's a big flying butt at common. Pretty solid card. Soul Cipher Board. 2 mana for an artifact. Enters battlefield with 3 omen counters on it. Pay 2. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one of them. I gotta get my glasses up. Put one of them in your graveyard. Alright, so like a weird scry effect. Whenever a creature card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, remove an omen counter from this bond. And then if it has no omen counters, transform it. So you have to do this at least 3 times, or other ways too. And you flip it, and it becomes Cipher Bound Spirit. 3/2 flyer, only block flyers, pay 4, draw 2, discard 1. I mean, the Spirit's pretty good. More of like a stalemate kind of card. It doesn't block very well. It's kind of slow and clunky. This card, what happened? This card honestly reminds me of the Heirloom Mirror in the last set, where like it can do stuff, but it's very slow and it's very clunky. So it's going to depend on how fast the format is for a card like this. The format was pretty fast and board heavy in the last set. If it's like that, this card's not going to be good. But if it's a slower format, it's more about like kind of like 2-for-1 stuff like that. It could be reasonable, but kind of slow and clunky and not that exciting, honestly. Steelclad Spirit, 2 mana for a 3/3 defender. Whenever enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, can attack with no defender. Just a middling card. Good defender. If you're like a slower control deck, a 3/3 blocker for 2 is totally fine. Can attack once in a while. Just like an okay defensive limited card. Nothing crazy. Stitch Assistant. 3 mana for a 3/2. Exploit. Scry 1, draw card. It's an okay common. It's fine. Again, very dependent on you finding fodder. And I feel like I haven't seen much fodder yet. We haven't gotten to black, though. This also, exploit being legal will make the pacifism in white a little worse. Because you can still exploit off it, which is kind of a thing. But feels like a fine common. Just a 3/2 for 2 or 3 is already like reasonable. But If there's good fodder, sacrificing a crabby thing to draw Shroud and draw cards is pretty good. It's fine. It's fine. Nothing amazing, but fine. And again, the fail state of being a 3/2 for 3 is like not that bad. Stormchaser Drake, 2 mana for a 2/1 flyer. Remember Welkin turn? Remember Welkin turn. That's the art of a spell you control, draw a card. This card is just good. A 2/1 flyer for 2 is just like good by itself and limited. And then if you ever draw a card off, that's insane. Constructed, this could be sort of like a Saram kind of card where you like play this and just like start piling stuff onto it and drawing cards. It is rather fragile, but pretty cool. There are protection spells also, which is kind of nice. Kind of a cool card. I could see this card seeing play in various formats based on that sort of Saram-esque effect. And card's just solid. Just a solid little flyer. Good rate, too. Good rate. Syncopate returns. Counter becomes pay X, exile if you counter it. Just a middling counter spell. Nothing super exciting. It's okay. It's passable. It's not very good. It's okay. In both constructed and limited. Siphon Essence, 3 mana for an instant. Counter target creature, planeswalker, and make a blood token. Blood token. That's our first blood token, right? So a blood token. If I can show you what a blood token is. A blood token is a 1 mana an artifact that... Let's see if we can get the blood token here for you. Ah, crap. Whatever. There it is. There's your blood token. And it's a artifact. You can pay 1, discard a card, and sacrifice the artifact to draw a card. So it's a rummage. Kind of like a rummage clue. And much worse than a clue, obviously, because you have to discard a card. But whether you're putting a disturb card in the graveyard or it's not flooding out late, discarding lands, pretty cool. Is it better than a decayed token? And I must say, it's pretty sweet because the decayed tokens and these blood tokens are both tokens where you look at them and you're like, how good is this? I don't really know. We had to figure out what decayed tokens did for you. And now we need to figure out what blood tokens do. How valuable is a blood token? Is it worth a card, half a card? What's it worth, So this card feels worse, a little worse than Flip a Switch, which wasn't necessarily great, but also format dependent. If it's a little bit slower of a format, this card would be very, very good. Just like an okay card. Just your middling kind of counterspell unlimited. Nothing really amazing. Only countering creatures to planeswalkers is also a thing too, because you want to counter like a removal spell or something like that, but just an okay card. Thirst for Discovery. This card's pretty wild. 3 mana for an instant. Draw 3. Discard 2. Unless you discard a basic land. So almost an instant speak impulsive research, but had to put that basic land clause in there. It makes this card a lot worse, obviously. But powerful card. If you're discarding basic lands to this consistently, it is a very good card. Very, very good card. Thirst for knowledge, compulsive research style. The problem is most decks don't play that many basic lands, so a little iffy in that regard. But still a reasonable card. A very good way to just discard cards to the graveyard if you want to gain some value off your graveyard stuff. Constructed playable, absolutely. Will it have a home? Big question mark. In limited, very, very good. Because all you're playing is basic lands. So phenomenal limited card. But in constructed, it could find a home, but will it is a pretty big if. Wanderlight Spirit. 3 mana for a 2/3 flyer. Only block creatures are flying. Worse than it looks. Not being able to block is a huge downside. Huge. You block flyers, obviously, but if you're playing a deck that wants a spirit, if it wants an attacker, sure. But again, don't discount the turn you cast a card like this, and you're just helpless. Wash Away. Ooh, boy. This card's good. 1 blue. Counter target spell that wasn't cast from its owner's hand. You can cleave it for 3 and just cancel. So 1 mana counter All-Ins Epiphany. And then in older formats, 1 mana to counter Crashing Footfalls, to counter whole bunch of stuff. Pretty cool card. Epiphany Killer, I'm not sure if we're going to go that far, but very, very solid card. Cancels borderline playable anyway. And it's a very solid card, honestly. 1 blue, counters Flashback, counters Rhinos, counters a lot of stuff. You can make a list. You can go on and on and on and on about what this can counter. But super cool card. Like it a lot. Great tool to have. Cool sideboard card. Cool reasonable card. Card is good. Whispering Wizard. I like Whispering too. 4 mana for a 3/2. If you cast a non-creature spell, make a 1/1 flying spirit token only once a turn. Solid limited card for sure. The kind of card where you untap with it, you're feeling pretty good about life. Again, same problem. The turn you cast it doesn't block very well, but it's a solid limited card. Solid limited card with a little extra. If you're playing more synergy stuff like that, but it's just fine. It's just fine. Winged Portent, the blue-green cleave card. Kind of weird costing, but blue 1. Draw a card for each creature with flying you control. Not very good. Not very good. This card has to draw at least 3 cards before it's playable. And then you can cleave it for green-blue 4 and draw a card for each creature you control. Also not very good. So, good limited card. Because you can draw a few cards off it in a stale board state, or stalled board state, sure. But not playable constructed. Most things are really weird. Witness the Future. The mana for a sorcery. Target player shuffles up to 4 cards from a graveyard into their library. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put 1 into your hand and the rest to the bottom. 3 mana Impulse is not very good. There's some graveyard hate here too, which is kind of cool. But all in all, feels way too clunky for constructed. For limited, this card's fine. You can shuffle in your own good cards. You can graveyard hate their cards. Impulse is kind of okay. I think there's enough value here for limited where like this card's like okay in your draft deck. But constructed, this card's definitely not good enough. Wretched Thong. Thong. Let me see your throng. 2 mana for a 2/1. Whenever it dies, you may search your library for a card named Wretched Thong, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle your library. So, this is your Collect Me card. Collect Me card for limited. If you have 4 of these in your deck, this card is going to be very, very good. Just an endless, Squadron Thong, sure. You sack it to exploit it, get a new one. Sack it to exploit it, get a new one, etc., etc. Of course, the problem is, will you have enough of these? So, you got to catch them all unlimited. If you have 3 or more of this card, it's very, very good. If you have 2, it's passable. 1's obviously pretty bad. Constructed, probably not. There's better ways to do things like this. Things like Skyclave Shade and so on and so forth. But for limited, this is a really cool card. If you're playing an exploit deck, you can get 3 or 4 of these and be very, very happy. Super cool draft card. That's it for blue. Blue is all wrapped up with the thong. The thong is on. All right. And YouTube folks, love you. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what your best in show is. Black is coming up. YouTube folks. See you on the flip side. The thong side.